Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. On Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages, the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great NESSP shows, the stores and links, show info, all kinds of stuff over there at our website. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How you doing today?
Good, Mac. Mac, you mentioned before the show it's supposed to snow this Sunday. All of a sudden, I had an idea. In hockey, they have the New Year's Day Classic. They play the game outdoors. What about doing a show, taking a chair, putting it outside in the snow, calling it the Mac and Jack Classic?
Okay.
Once a year, we do it in the snow.
What players, Jack, are we gonna get to play in our classic game?
Well, we'll see the kids, running in the street, playing their game. Maybe we'll interview some kids on the block, or, we can manufacture things. We make up things all along, Mac. We do.
We're pretty good at that. We're pretty good at that. Good morning to Keith over there at TGI Sports.
That is a quick start. That's what
I'll tell you.
Catching us from the beginning. Yeah,
I'll tell you. That's great. Keith's a great host over there, and of course, part of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Oh yeah.
Jack, we're gonna get to our updates, and we've got a lot of things to cover today. Today, folks, we have the Philly sports guy Jamie Pags on, back from the Super Bowl. He did a live report for us down there. He's back. We'll talk to him a little bit about that, a little bit about the Eagles, the Flyers, and the 76ers. I don't know if there's any Phillies news out there, but if there is, he'll tell us about that too. He's all into the Philly sports scene. Of course, the biggest news of the weekend was the Bucs win over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And, Jack, we're going to talk about that in the second hour, but a little differently than the other shows. So first, let's do our sports updates and info. In NBA scores, the Pelicans beat the Rockets 130-101. The Warriors beat the Spurs 114-91. Portland was over the Magic 106-97. And locally, the Pistons beat the Nets 122-111 minus Durant. Harden had 24 points. Kyrie had 27, Jack. So without Durant, they didn't look that good last night.
I don't want to hear without Durant. They lost to the lowly Pistons, and they got a butt whipping. So if they had Durant in, they would have lost the close game. They should own a team like the Pistons with or without Durant in there. Nets have major problems. I'm not going to talk about it now, but I am sick of this. There's always an excuse. Mac, you have to throw in without Durant. It wouldn't have mattered without Durant.
Okay, all right.
It wouldn't have mattered had Durant been in there. They still would have lost. I mean, I'm worried the Nets are going to get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. To get them making a serious run at the finals, I mean, they've got real problems on that team.
It's still early, Jack. We'll see what happens with them. The Knicks lose to the Heat 98-96. Randall with 12 points, 8 rebounds. Peyton with the Knicks highs at 18. And a newly acquired Derrick Rose with 14 points off the bench. And, Jack, what do you think about Rose playing for the Knicks?
Listen, I like it. It's his third stop with Tom Thibodeau. Obviously, they're very fond of one another. Derrick Rose is going to buy into anything Tom Thibodeau is going to do. Tom Thibodeau feels comfortable, maybe with the veteran leadership that Derrick Rose could combine. There was some concern that Derrick Rose might be taking time away from Quickly. They're, really good rookie. Their supposed point guard of the future. But Tom Thibodeau's playing them both together. That's what the indications are. And I think it's a good move. They got him cheap, and it's a nice move. A very good
agree.
move.
I definitely agree with you, Jack. I definitely agree. I think the experience of a professional there with the young kids will definitely help them out in the long run. So the 76ers keep winning, Jack, over the Kings, 119 to 111. Embiid had 25 points and 17 rebounds. Seth Curry chips in with 22 points. So Embiid's still playing tough, still doing his job there. And Doc Rivers has him playing really good ball, Jack.
He absolutely does. And with the Nets playing the way they are, the door is wide open for anyone to come out of the East. I mean, the Nets are no longer the favorites. I mean, the East, it's amazingly wide open. Even the Miami Heat, who went to the final last year, now that Jimmy Butler's returned from injury, they beat the Knicks in back-to-back games. And the Miami Heat are 7-5 with Jimmy Butler this year, and they're 3-9 without him.
Yeah.
Okay, so that should give you an indication his value. And the Sixers, the Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Nets have to be thrown in the mix. And the East is wide open. I mean, as opposed to the West, where you have the Lakers, Clippers, and Utah Jazz. Those three are bottled up at the top.
Yeah, I mean, great point about the East being wide open, and Milwaukee has just won 5 in a row. So don't look now, but here they come. The Celtics get beat by the Utah Jazz, and the Utah Jazz is pretty much surprising everybody how well they're playing. We all knew last year they had a solid team, but right now they're on fire. Jaylen Brown, had 33 points, and Tatum kicks in 23. So their two big stars are doing a job, Jack. It just don't look like the Celtics have enough anywhere else.
No, I think the Celtics only one game over 500. They're so-so team. They'll make the playoffs. I mean, they have a legitimate chance of making noise in the playoffs. But unlike a couple of years ago where they were favored to go to the finals, it didn't work out. The Utah Jazz, interesting. They have a 20-5 record, meaning they've won 4 out of every 5 games they've played. And no one talks about their big three, Mitchell, Gobert, Bogdanovich. I mean, they do it, especially a guy like Rudy Gobert with the rebounding, and the chemistry is there with the Utah Jazz. That's the thing about it. The Nets have the glamour names in their big three, but the Jazz have the chemistry, and that's what wins NBA championships.
I definitely agree with that, Jack. In the NHL scores, Jack, the Oilers, they skate past the Senators 3-2, the Panthers 2, Red Wings 1. The Blackhawks check the Stars 2-1. Lightning is 6-1 over the Predators. The Sharks attack the Kings 4-3. The Flames burn the Jets 3-2, and the Golden Knights 5, and the Ducks 4.
The defending champion, Tampa Bay Lightning, off to a great start. It's amazing the 4 major sports. Tampa Bay doesn't have an NBA team. They don't. But I don't count the Orlando Magic, as one of their teams, even though Orlando is not that far from Tampa. But when you think they have the NFL champions now, they have the NHL champions, and had the Rays beaten the Dodgers, they would have had the World Series champions. Phenomenal. And the LA market, LA has 2 of the 4 major sports, of course, and the Dodgers and the Lakers. So Los Angeles and Tampa Bay are dominating the 4 major sports.
Yes, they are. They are, Jack. That's true. So let's get to the NFL news. The Walter Payton Man of the Year award is the same guy that doesn't like getting hit anymore, and that's Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, Jack.
Mac, if you were sacked 394 times,
yes,
as Russell Wilson has been in his career, Those are the most quarterback sacks since 1970. It gets to you after a while. What's he supposed to do? Put a smile on his face, say, golly gee, I signed the contract. I'm living up to my contract. He's tired of it. He's been tired of it for years. He hasn't been complaining publicly for years. What's that movie that went against Rocky in 1976, Network? I'm as mad as hell and I don't give a damn or something.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has had it finally. Protect the guy. They keep thinking because he's mobile, he can avoid getting hit, but he's not avoiding getting hit. 394 times, Mac. That's more times than you've insulted me by far. It's unbelievable after a while.
Yes, yes. Well, what can I tell you? Maybe he had to change teams or something, and I don't know. Listen,
Get him blocking.
Well, that would help too, Jack. To me, one of the most untalked about coach that is, one of the best coaches in football history. Marty Schottenheimer passed away Monday. Condolences to his family. And Marty was a great coach, Jack. I mean, he built a lot of teams all the way back to the Browns, all the way up to the Chiefs. He just did a great job. Wherever he went, he was a winner. Kind of old school, kind of strict, but he really built some really good teams out there.
And the players loved Marty Schottenheimer. He was a player's coach. 7th winningest coach of all time in the NFL.
Yeah.
7th winningest coach, except for the playoffs, where he had a 5-13 record. And there were heartbreaking losses.
Yeah.
He was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns when 2 years in a row they lost the AFC Championship game, when John Elway took them on a 98-yard drive. And also the following year with the Ernest Biner fumble, where they just came a little short of the Super Bowl. They had a great team at San Diego when they went 14-2. They were favored to go to the Super Bowl, but then got upset by the Patriots. And what Keith Engel just put in, classy man Marty Schottenheimer, he absolutely was. He had a brief stopover with the Redskins, in which they overachieved. I think they went 8-8 over Marty. They did better than expected, but I don't think he was able to take Daniel Snyder there after a while. Yeah. And he was 4 teams: the Chiefs, the Browns, the Chargers, the Redskins. He coached for a decade at Kansas City and was highly successful, but he just couldn't get over the top in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Yeah. And just like anything else, you're viewed at the end. See, to me, Jack, it's all about the climb. It's not where you get. And Marty really climbed.
I hope he gets to the Hall of Fame someday.
Me too. So speaking of the Hall of Fame, Jack, we didn't get a chance to talk about it because it happened on our 2 days we don't do the show. The inductees were announced. Peyton Manning, I mean, of course, he was going to make the Hall of Fame. Unbelievable quarterback, set a lot of records and led the Colts at least to a Super Bowl. And he was in the playoffs quite a bit. Of course, he went to the Broncos, and they went to the Super Bowl too, a little bit out of his prime, but he still went along for the ride and contributed. Defensive back Charles Woodson, a great defensive back, dominated the league while he played in his prime, Jack.
Let me just say something with Woodson going with Manning is ironic, because when Charles Woodson won the Heisman Trophy, he edged out Peyton Manning in a close vote. So it's ironic that they went head-to-head for the Heisman Trophy winning vote, and then they're going in the Hall of Fame the same year. It's like they started together and ended together, even though they were never teammates.
Very true. Very true. So also going in, Jack, was Megatron, Calvin Johnson. Now, he didn't have a career, say, like a long career like Jerry Rice did. But in his prime, Jack, nobody could stop this man. Strong, fast, unbelievable receiver, just somebody in his prime that you just couldn't stop.
9-year career, sensational. The question was, did he play long enough? Now, 9 years would be enough time if you leave your mark. Look, the great Jim Brown, I think, played 9 years. That was more than enough for him because he was so sensational. But Calvin Johnson's problem, too, he was playing for a pretty weak team in the Lions.
Yeah.
The team had very limited success, and that doesn't help your cause. If you're on a championship team along the way, a team that makes an impact, it becomes much easier to vote for him. But with Calvin Johnson, you're right. The question was, did he have the longevity to get in? And the voters ultimately decided he was so great that they were going to put him in. And I think it's a good call.
I do too. Hi to Keith Hayes too out there listening right now. Dallas wide receiver, the other half of the first Hail Mary pass,
Yeah.
Jack. Drew Pearson was inducted when Roger Staubach threw that ball, and I think it was against the Minnesota Vikings in the championship game where it looked like he pushed off, but they let him play back then, Jack. So he drove me crazy. My team is not the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, we're one of their arch rivals. And he used to drive me crazy in the 70s. Classy guy, solid receiver. He didn't set the world on fire as far as stats go, Jack, but he was just that one receiver Dallas had in the 70s that was their possession receiver and could go deep on you.
With the Hail Mary play, people forget the Cowboys had the ball on their own 20, and Roger Staubach threw very late in the game, obviously, a 30-yard pass. I think it was Pearson who caught that and went out of bounds. It was a great catch, which put him at midfield where they were able to try a Hail Mary. And do you think he pushed off against the Vikings?
There's no doubt. No doubt. I watched it. Live. He pushed off, and they showed
the film. Sure. I watched numerous times. I mean, it wasn't clear-cut to me. I would love one of those NFL officials who are in the booth to go back and look at old controversial plays, because to me it wasn't clear-cut. Maybe it was a penalty, but it was frustrating with the Vikings.
Yeah, that was probably their best team, and those were the two teams in it all the time in the 70s, Jack. You had count the Redskins on that too in the 70s, where you had the Vikings, the Cowboys, and the Redskins always going from the NFC to the Super Bowl. John Lynch gets in, Jack. Great Tampa Bay safety. GM for the 49ers right now, doing a bang-up job over there. Glad he got in. Another old school guy that really works really hard at his craft, no matter what he does. And it showed with the 49ers going to Super Bowl last year, Jack.
John Lynch waited a while. When you wait a while the way he did, I think it was 8 years or so, you wonder whether it's going to happen for you or not. So when you get in, it's not only ecstasy, you not only really feel this tremendous joy, but you feel a sense of relief. And I think you appreciate it more when you actually get in, when you've had to wait a while. And John Lynch, deserving with Tampa Bay, he was an outstanding player.
Definitely. A reminder for the viewers out there, we'll have Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guy, coming up very shortly.
Mac, I haven't heard anyone say, was the vote for Peyton Manning unanimous? Because if it wasn't unanimous, I want to know which idiot it was. We've got to weed these guys out, like the guy who didn't vote for Derek Jeter to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, these guys, I know you have a ballot and you have a right to vote for whoever you want because that's what a ballot's for.
Right.
Okay? But some of these choices are ridiculous that people make, that voters make. And I think they've got to be held accountable. I think the ballot has to be made public afterwards. That's just my thought, but that's something to debate about. Maybe we'll do it on our show one day.
Okay. Two lesser-known guys, Jack, also made it in. At least lesser known to the majority of the people out there, I would think. Offensive lineman for Pittsburgh, Alan Faneca. Thank you, Faneca. Thank you. Offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a great career over there. Was one of the blockers for the bus.
He was with the Jets a little while. He was
we want to talk about good times, Jack. Let's talk about
he was good with the Jets, but he made his mark, obviously, all the years with the Steelers. And
right.
Offensive linemen are so hard to judge sometimes to the average fan because we follow the ball.
Right.
The ball gets snapped, we follow the quarterback, and all we judge offensive linemen on would a hit, was a quarterback under pressure. If he wasn't
Right.
under pressure, we give credit to the offensive linemen. We say they're good. If the quarterback's under pressure, we look to blame an offensive lineman, but it only takes one offensive lineman to screw things up and take
I
away from the good work of the others. But it's nice
Yeah.
to see an offensive lineman get credit.
definitely. And there was a guy named Bill Dunn from the Steelers scouting department, Jack. He was most popular for helping build them great teams of the Steelers of the 70s. And he's one of the first ones, Jack, that called on Pittsburgh to start looking at the all-black universities to check out the athletes down there. So he was very, I want to say ahead of his time, but he told the Steelers, hey, look in this direction. Don't just look in this one direction. And it helped pick up a few good
4
players.
Super Bowl wins in 6 years. I mean, not that little block, 4 in 6 years, is the closest thing to a mini dynasty since the Super Bowl's begun. I mean, New England had the great 20-year run, but 4
Right.
in 6 years, it topped the Cowboys' 3 Super Bowl wins in 4 years. And other teams have won back-to-back. But 4 in 6 years, what a run they had.
I definitely agree. And also, Jack, the last member that I haven't mentioned yet was Tom Flores, 2-time Super Bowl winner, and also played and coached on some Super Bowl teams we have come to find out. At least I have come to find out, as you pointed out to me in one of our debates.
He's done so many things. And, he's the first Latino coach that, won a Super Bowl, so on. And,
Yeah, but
he wasn't
yeah.
a player by any means. And you can argue he wasn't a great coach per se, but you can't argue against his overall accomplishments, which have been enormous, since he got into football. So it's good he's in there.
We got Philly sports guy Pags in early, so I got a couple more bits we're gonna do, Pags, but I want to involve. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Philly sports guy himself, Pags. We're gonna get to him about his Super Bowl Philly news, but first we got a couple things that we always do on Wednesday, and let's see if I can cue this up. Yes, sir. Every Wednesday, folks, we do our Wall of Fame. Over there at our website at nessp.info, we have a Wall of Fame, Pags, and we put up our inductees. First, we had our first page, which we put up our main guys in each sport, and then we went to baseball, and we put our first 4 on there, and now we go to our boxing page, and the first inductee on that boxing page is the great Muhammad Ali, first heavyweight of the 20th, number 1, I should say, heavyweight of the 20th century, record 56-5, 3-time linear champion, rated best heavyweight champion 12 times, beating 21 boxers, winning 14 unified title bouts, and known for his legendary rivalry with Joe Frazier, Smoking Joe Frazier, guys. So, Jack, you being the boxing expert, tell us a little bit about the great Muhammad Ali.
Well, let me show you something first.
Oh, here it goes. There he is.
Muhammad Ali. I'm wearing it. A great choice in honor of Black History Month, too, to have Muhammad Ali there. And it's ironic that you have Pags on now because Joe Frazier was a Philadelphian.
Yes, he was.
A Philadelphia legend. And there was a little controversy when the movie Rocky was made. They had the statue of Rocky in Philadelphia. They had it before Joe Frazier. And some people were complaining they had the real thing in Joe Frazier to hit, but eventually they came around and had the statue of Joe. And Muhammad Ali, just a legend, not just in boxing, in society. I don't think you ever had a greater people's champion than Ali. Okay, let's just forget about his great ring accomplishments for a moment. No other athlete ever connected with the public the way Muhammad Ali did. He seemed to love people Okay, and everyone was attracted to Ali. I mean, not Smoking Joe, of course. He carried things a little too far with Joe, and I know firsthand because I got to spend time alone with Joe, in which he vented about Ali in private. So the dislike, and that's a kind word, was genuine. But towards the end of Joe's life, I think maybe he started to come around a bit and let go of some of the animosity he had towards Ali, because Ali would be reaching out to Frazier at times. But talk about a rivalry. We're going to have a special show
Thank you.
on March 7th this year for everyone out there to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first Ali Frazier fight in an event unlike any other. But the reason we're not having it on March 8th, the day of the fight, because that's on a Monday and we don't run the show on Monday. So we're coming as close as possible. And we're going to have people who are actually at that fight. I was one of them, by the way, but we're going to have others. And we're going to discuss that in detail. Not just, you put down Joe Frazier here. Not only Joe Frazier, but Ali beat Sonny Liston. And at the time in 1964 was considered one of the biggest upsets in sports history because Liston was considered invincible. Ali at the time was named Cassius Clay. And of course, the rope-a-dope with George Foreman and Zaire. And just one quick word. We're going to, this is about Ali. Leon Spinks, who upset Ali late in Ali's career, and then Ali beat him in a rematch to regain the title. Leon Spinks passed away a few days ago, and Leon Spinks had a heart of gold himself, an Olympic gold medalist. So we remember Leon Spinks fondly in here. But Muhammad Ali for the Wall of Fame, I mean, he's up there with everyone. I think, Pax, when ESPN had the 50 greatest athletes of all time, I think Ali was third on there. I think they had Babe Ruth and Jordan up there, and then Ali. And what are your thoughts in regard to Smoking Joe Frazier, and Ali, the whole rivalry? He's a Philadelphian, Joe.
Well, well, thanks. I tell you what, you did a great job really explaining that. I mean, you could tell you have a boxing background where I don't know that I'm going to be able to say as well, especially because it was a little before my time. But that was back when boxing ruled the world. When they would have these matches like on Wide World of Sports, and it was bigger than life. So those types of things, and I remember, I look back at some of the videos of Howard Cosell interviewing Muhammad Ali, and just the charisma that Ali had was over the top. I mean, he was the first athlete to really bring an interview into mainstream media like that. Like he was able to really start. I feel like he started the career of Don King because Don King was the one who saw that type of charisma and was able to sort of enhance that as well. And it just all the different things that Ali was able to do. Now, to talk about Frazier was none of those things. He was just a bruiser boxer from Philadelphia who just stuck his head in, and just kept going in and going after you and going after you and going after you. And that was what Philly was all about. He embodied what Philadelphia was. It was just a blue collar, hardworking, knuckle grinding, just try, do whatever we can to get on top. And, he had his time on top. And, ultimately, I think that Ali did take advantage of the fact that Frazier wasn't as communicative, wasn't able to respond to the banter. Like if Frazier had the ability to banter back and forth, that could have gone on for decades, where that would have been a tremendous amount of fun. And I don't think Frazier had that in him. He wasn't brought up that way. But definitely the three fights between the two of them were epic. They will always be remembered in boxing lore. And, like I said, when I think of boxers, I think of those two really on top. And George Foreman being number 3. Those are the top 3 that I always
think about.
But
you're Mr. Pax, you said before your time, boxing used to be so big in Philly. You would have loved it then. So much was going on, especially with the middleweights. Marvin Hagler would come from Brockton, Massachusetts to Philadelphia because that's the only place he could get meaningful fights on the way up. And it was, I mean, the fighters, Willie Monroe, Eugene Cyclone Hartz, Bobby Boogaloo Watts. We've had Russell Peltz, and we're going to have him again, the Philadelphia promoter, on this show. But I'm going to turn it back to Mac, but the Wall of Fame choice, Mac, Muhammad Ali, especially Black History Month. I mean, what a great choice. We don't have to recount the story of Muhammad Ali. I think people know it very well by now. But even the modern athletes today, they absolutely revere Muhammad Ali. If he were alive and he walked in a room, everything stops. He was the icon of icons.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was a hell of a self-promoter for the business. I mean, he made fights before they fought, and he backed up his mouth for a few times. I'm a huge Smoking Joe Frazier fan, and that's why Ali. I got a lot of respect for Ali, but down deep, I loved it when Frazier almost knocked his block off. It was great, and I really enjoyed it. So anyway, let's get to more Philly news. And first, we'll start from the Super Bowl, Pags. I mean, you're back from the Super Bowl. You were down there live. You were at the tailgate party. It looked like everybody was having a great time, especially the Tampa super fans. And I'm starting to learn a lot about this super fan club now, what you guys really do. How you guys move around the country and go to different events. And it's really cool that you guys can do that together and have your little when you go to events and you help out, you even help out a lot of charity causes. I mean, you guys do a lot of work. But let's get to the Super Bowl. What was it like down in Tampa, Pags, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing there? That had to be awesome.
It was a lot of fun. So, I mean, ultimately, I went down there. This was a working trip. I am an Eagles fan. I was pulling for the party, so Tampa. I was kind of hoping that Tampa would do it. First off, the NFL does a tremendous job of doing the experience and just the way that they handled it in terms of with COVID ruling the world still, where everybody was socially distant. They made sure everybody was wearing masks. Tampa Bay was using fines if you weren't wearing your mask. So they were really trying their best to make sure that everybody was doing their part to stay socially distant and, COVID free. That being said, the NFL still didn't take any time off. They had a whole areas where you could do a 40-yard dash, you could do a field goal kick, you could go through a building and see all of the Super Bowl rings and the trophy and such, and that type of stuff is really meant for families and things, so that you can go down there and enjoy it in total. And then you see all the different super fans. I mean, I got all painted up to go to the NFL experience, and I met with one of my Viking buddies who's also larger than life, and also with my host who was a Seahawks super fan, and the three of us just walking through, everybody stopping us to take a picture and doing that, so which is always a lot of fun. And then they have actually a football game that they play, and I would say that for Chiefs fans, it probably was not anything near what they expected, and that may have started as early as Thursday with the bad news that came out of the Chiefs camp, and it just didn't look like they were ever really 100% in that game whatsoever. And Tom Brady was Tom Brady, and he took advantage of it. I feel like the Chiefs made some very serious mistakes, and Tom Brady.
Pax, let me ask you this, and no one talks about it. I know how beat up Patrick Mahomes was, but he made a couple of amazing throws on balls that were catchable, that maybe should have been caught. Had those balls been caught, we're talking about a different game. Not the Chiefs winning, but the Chiefs cutting into the lead and making it a ball game. And our perception today wouldn't be of the Chiefs getting beaten up. It would be the Chiefs losing a hard, tough game, just coming a little short. That may have been our perception. It's not like anyone was bailing out Patrick Mahomes. He badly needed receivers to bail them out. And then, like I said, there were catchable balls that just were dropped.
14 points, I feel, that the Chiefs left on the board, and their defense gave up an additional 7 points. A 21-point swing makes that a much different game. You
And can
know,
I say
so
one other thing? So much is attitude. You know, when I knew the game was over and Tampa Bay won, remember when the center snapped the ball over Tom Brady's head? And it bounced the right way for Brady to recover. There were no Chiefs near him. It's
right.
as if the enthusiasm level was gone, because if the enthusiasm level was up, they'd be scrambling all out for the ball. At least would have made it look close to recovering the ball. They came nowhere close. So that showed me a tired team that basically had given up at that point.
I agree. It just the offense didn't look like the offense. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, and I know that he had both of his offensive tackles out, and that kind of made things really difficult for him. He was always running, but he was still making passes. And it's a shame those helmets can't catch, because he was hitting people in the head. It seemed like all the time. Literally 2 touchdowns. I felt one shorthanded Kelsey. I mean, hits him in the helmet, and then Hill hits him in the helmet. I mean, how do you miss those balls? And it just seemed that they weren't focused. They just were not focused well enough for a Super Bowl. And maybe that had to do with the fact that this was just an away game. This was a
I
lot
want to
different.
ask Mac this, because I know Mac is old school. Le'Veon Bell, he didn't even get to play. Before the game, Le'Veon Bell was talking about a rap album or something. And Mac, he didn't even play in the Super Bowl, Le'Veon Bell. Talk about being a star back for the Steelers not that long ago to this point.
Hey, people make their decisions. Guys, I don't go in for ifs and what would have happened if. I mean, when you get down to it, there's all kinds of plays that could have turned the game around. They weren't made. The score is what it is. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers punked the Kansas City Chiefs. Plain and simple. They dominated them, and that's all there is to that. I don't care if you could have caught or you could have ran or you shouldn't have fumbled. The penalties. The game is the game, and I don't make any excuses for anybody. You were there, you had a chance, and you lost, and you didn't just lose. You got beat pretty bad. Let's get to the Eagles real quick, Pags. A lot of news about Carson Wentz being up for the trade, and it looks like the Eagles are shopping him.
Yes. In fact, that was one of the questions I was asked most this week. How do I feel, and where's my stance? And I'm going to be honest. I'm going to come on, with you guys and explain. I was a big Carson Wentz supporter, as you guys know. Throughout the season, I said that the Eagles were going to go as far as Carson Wentz was going to take them. I have changed my stance. I feel the fact that he has not come out and spoken publicly, and he has not expressed, hey, if he comes out and says, hey, I'm not real happy with the Eagles organization, I feel that it may be time for a change, or at least express a little something saying, hey, we got a new coach. I may or may not be interested in doing this. I don't know who's prepping him, but I feel that the fact that he is not saying anything is speaking too loudly, and it makes him look very prima donna-ish. And I'm not a big fan of prima donnas. I feel like that also shows a lack of leadership throughout the locker room. And because of that, I feel like that there's no choice. He has to go.
Well, my buddy Joe Santalaquita, Mac, and Pax, we had on the show, wrote a story about this a couple of years ago, and he had all these threats and people were outraged. They revoked his press credentials to defend Carson Wentz, but everything he wrote about is coming to fruition.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, and I it's unfortunate because, like I said, I think that he is a talent. I don't know what is the cause of this. Is it really Hurts that came in and he felt slighted? I feel that he didn't want to listen to coaching. And because he didn't want to listen to coaching, this has caused the slippery slope that he is on now. And when you are the first one to start to dismiss the coach, and then you have the type of season that you had, you weren't very Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has always had this stigma attached to him, that he has not been a teammate, that he's not been very good, but he has also been MVP-ish, where Carson Wentz has not. And that is a big issue moving forward, especially when you have somebody like Hurts, who is trying to do everything he can, who is more working man, who is more like, I want to rally around this team and get this team moving in the right direction. And so you got Carson Wentz saying and being wishy-washy, and Hurts trying to take charge. Well, I like to follow true leadership, and unfortunately, Wentz isn't showing that right now, and everything that that writer wrote about is coming true.
Pags, I think the problem that you have there, of course, first of all, is the big contract. And a lot of teams are going to be saying, hey, you want to unload his contract. So they're going to lowball. And Eagles are coming back and saying, well, guess what? We're just interested in trading Carson. We're not definitely trading Carson. So for a while there, I think it's going to be back and forth. How you doing, Preston? It's going to be back and forth to see what happens. But it's going to be very interesting. I can see some teams that would benefit for him being there if he plays like he did a couple of years ago. The Colts are one that come to mind. There's a couple other teams out there too. Chicago said Chicago is interested. Maybe you get Foles back, as one listener said, back under the Eagles' wings again, to maybe help out Hurst and be there as a maybe a stopgap or to fill in if he's having problems or gets hurt. So maybe you end up with Foles as backup again, and you got a new quarterback up there. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's very interesting, that's for sure. Let's go to the 76ers. I mean, in first place, they have a 2-game lead. Embiid is playing his tail off. It seems like, Doc Rivers has that team playing some good basketball, Pags. And the only thing you got to worry about right now is the Bucks charging hard, winning 5 in a row. The Nets seem to be, up and down and not sure what they're doing. The Celtics seem okay, but they don't have their whole team together. They had a couple stars over there. So it looks like it's going to come down probably to those 3 teams. And right now, Pags, you guys look great.
I agree. It's still early in the season. I like the way that they are gelling. I like the fact that, it's so, for instance, last night I got to only watch some of the game, but it wasn't solely on Embiid to take over. Seth Curry started to make threes again. He's finally back and was able to take some of the scoring away where you had to go cover him, so that it wasn't really all Embiid. And Embiid got to get a lot of extra rebounds because of it. So, I mean, I think he had 25 and 17. And then you also have Tobias Harris putting in a lot of minutes. And to speak a lot of that, everybody in Philadelphia and probably nationwide thought Tobias Harris did not deserve that contract. But I feel that he has definitely been earning his pay. And it's some of the mucking and grinding that you have to do and putting in those long minutes to prove. And I know that that's not sexy, it's not things that show up a lot in the stat line. But when you put it in 40 minutes a night and you are scoring, you're getting double doubles. Like, I think he had like 21 points and 11 rebounds, and just doing all of the things that you need to do to be able to win games. It's a 5-on-5 game, not 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. And you need those extra guys to put in those minutes. And he's really earned that spot. And I feel that he's one of the unsung heroes of this team right now, that he's just doing all these things that are making them win. And I feel that Doc Rivers has really had his largest effect on Tobias Harris and done his thing. Now, I think that they also worked with each other in LA, right? So, I mean, I think he was, he was the coach of him when he was at the Clippers too. So
now, speaking of LA, Pags, I get the feeling the Sixers are a semi-impact play away, semi-impact. And there's one guy out there who Doc Rivers coached who's become a non-entity. He's become a forgotten man. And watching the Net Piston game last night, Blake Griffin. No one talks about him anymore with the Pistons, and Doc Rivers coached him for years with the Clippers. I mean, maybe the Pistons want to dump Blake Griffin's salary and something could be worked out, because I think he'd be a big asset for the Sixers and a big difference maker.
Wouldn't it become? I feel like that becomes like a salary cap issue. I don't know who they'd be able to give up to be able to get him in here. And then where are they going to put him in? Like, is he going to play similar minutes to the way that Green plays? Because it's just see, with Simmons paying you'd have to move Simmons to point guard and have him down in the forward position. And I think that ruins the dynamic of what it is that they have going. I think that they need more of a shooter. I think that if they were to get back, I think, what were they talking about? One of the Sixers that was from a couple of years ago that went away and was a really good scorer, usually good from three-pointer, terrible defense though. Short guy. His name escapes me right now, but he was like a little bit of talk where they were going to try to get him back and things like that. I feel that's who they need. I feel they need another scorer, somebody who could also go from the point guard position, but play off the ball if Simmons is going to be the point forward.
I mean, listen, the season, as you said, is very young. There's a lot of things that can happen between here and the end of the season. I would imagine there's going to be some free agent movement, and some trades going on. So, I mean, the 76ers look like they have a chance at winning that division. I would imagine the management over there will do something come near the playoff time to increase those chances. Because to me right now, you guys are solid, and you guys got you may lack a little depth. I'm not sure about that, but I think you guys have a solid chance at winning the division this year. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to be tough, though, James. They're going to be tough bags.
I felt that the Sixers were going to be number 2 in the conference, and then that we were going to represent the East in the finals. I'm sticking to that. I feel that when it comes down, when it comes down to a 7-game series with the Bucks, I feel that the Bucks are always a little on the choking side.
Yes.
And I'm not sure why that is, and I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't follow the Bucks, I follow the Sixers. But I feel that when it comes down to a 7-game muck 'em and grind 'em series, that the Bucks are going to flail off and that the Sixers will be the team that will represent the East.
Pags, it's a Brooklyn team, but the Nets, it's frustrating. Even if with the big three are all together, and Max said earlier, Max said it's early in the year. It gets to the point where it's not that early in the year anymore. You have to start gelling at some point. And the net defense has been atrocious. And I don't see the potential for it getting better. That's what the problem is. James Harden has been great on one side of the ball. He's been very unselfish on offense, trying to dish the ball off. But he's not a natural defender. Kyrie Irving doesn't play good defense. And James Harden was even mad at DeAndre Jordan for not playing defense. I mean, it's a problem. I'm not talking about buying in for a couple of games. Anyone can get motivated for a game or two and play tenacious defense, especially when you're playing another top team. But what are the chances you think of the Nets gelling and the Sixers might run up against the big three?
I feel that that's going to be the second round of the playoffs. I mean, I feel that the Nets are going to be a 6 seed and that they're going to actually knock off Boston. Boston will probably be the 3rd seed. And I think that the Nets are playing just to get into the playoffs because I don't think it matters to them this season. I think as long as they make it into the playoffs, that's when you have to turn the switch on. And that's where I think that they're going to play. I think that that's what they're waiting for. And the fact that this is still, even though we are early in the season, they're going to have some time to start putting these pieces together. When you have that much talent, the cream always rises to the top. So my expectation is that they are probably going to be, like I said, I think they're going to flail around and not care as much until you get really close to the playoffs, until you're about, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks out of the playoffs. Then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing some wins coming from the Nets, and it's going to put them up into the number 6 spot, which I think is going to put them up against Boston. Yeah. And that's where, and I think that that's going to knock out Boston, which has been a thorn in the Sixers side. Because I feel that it always takes a little bit of luck to get to the finals. Yeah, obviously, when you're playing teams in basketball, it's a little different. But if the Sixers are to play the Celtics in the playoffs, the previous seasons are going to start to permeate a little bit. And you're going to start to think a little about it a little bit, where if they don't play them, now all of a sudden they're playing the Nets. Well, they can beat the Nets, and I feel that, and they feel that. And that's why I think that we're not going to have to face the Celtics this year in the playoffs, and that the Nets are going to be the ones that's going to knock them off and start to try to climb that ladder. And the Sixers are going to be in the way of that, and we'll stop that. And then you'll see, a Sixers-Bucks conference final.
Okay, let's turn to hockey with the Flyers. They're basically tied with Boston for the lead at 13-8. What do the Flyers need? I mean, what do they need to improve on, Pags? Because Boston has taken it to them pretty much the last couple times they've played. The Islanders are making a little run now. I knew they were going to get back into it. Of course, they played the Rangers, so that helps out a lot of teams right now to get it back in the right direction. So the Flyers, Boston, and the Islanders, we talked about, will probably be the three best teams left over from that league, from that division. I'm not trying to sell the Capitals short because they're playing good, and I'm not trying to short the Penguins because they're a solid team. But that's what we talked about, and we kind of thought would be the top three teams in the league. What are the Flyers doing? It seems now we had Carter B, our NHL analyst, and he's an Islander fan on, and he said it seems to him that when the Flyers get the lead, they kind of rest. They don't keep playing at the same enthusiasm as they do when they get the league. And it's part of the reason why the Islanders beat them last year. What do you think about that?
I disagree with that. I feel that the Islanders beat them last year just because they were faster, more better on their forecheck, were able to race to the puck better. And there was a lot of different things that the Islanders did much better in that series. Bring it forward. Why does Boston seem to have the Flyers number right now, tying these games up after the Flyers have leads and such? I feel that Boston right now has that extra gear. I mean, we watched the first two games. They didn't have Pasternak, and you saw how much of a difference he made in the second two games. However, in that same breath, the Flyers were ahead in both of those games and wind up losing both. That's going to come back a little bit. I feel that it's going to end up as Boston and the Flyers fighting it out in this division, and that still the conference is still going to go through Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is still the better team. I think that right now Boston is the better team. And to answer your original question, I feel that the Flyers still need shore up a little bit on defense. They have to stop giving the puck away in the zone. They still are doing that. They finally scored their first odd man rush goal the other day, it seemed, against Boston, where it was the first time that they had an odd man rush in the first actual play where they passed it off to the other one and they were able to score a goal. You haven't seen much of that. I feel that their passing is not very crisp as of yet. And of course, we're only 12 games into the season. It's 56 games long, so you still have time to be able to catch up with that. But they have to shore up the defense. They have to shore up their passing. And I think that if they get those two things in tune around game 40, that they're going to be one of the tougher teams to beat going into the playoffs.
I just realized the Boston-Philly rivalry in all sports. I mean, you're talking about it in the NBA a little while ago. You just mentioned it in hockey. And a few years ago, New England/Boston plays the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I mean, what's this thing between the two cities?
It used to be New York, but New York's trailed off,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And Boston is a very similar town. They are working man's town. They are, when you think of Boston, I still think of the Tea Party. You know what I mean? I still think of the revolutionists, and that's where America kind of started. But America's first capital was Philadelphia. So when you think of those types of things, and it's still only right up 95, they're very similar towns. And Boston has always been a thorn in Philadelphia's side. but it's always been New York that's gotten the prestige over the years. Well, New York hasn't really done much of anything lately. I mean, you have the Islanders, but they're not really New York City. They're out in Long Island, so it's a little bit of a different
It's a
situation.
Ranger town here.
Correct. And the Giants, they finally won a game after it seemed like 45 seasons against the Eagles. So those are the types of things that have trailed off with New York, and Boston has definitely picked up that slack.
Let me ask you, what's the reaction in Philadelphia of Andy Reid being the losing coach this year? Is there any reaction amongst Eagle fans? Are they saying the same old Andy? Or are they taking some cheap shots at him or what?
No, not that I've heard on sports talk radio or anything like that. I mean, there were certain people who just weren't fan of Andy Reid and wanted him to lose. I think in the manner that he wound up losing because of everything that happened this week, I think that, family trumps everything, including Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's part of what happened. And I think that the media also understands that there is something underlying that was really nagging at him, and he wasn't able to coach his team well. And rather than pile on, because there's going to always be time to pile on, he's always going to have this second loss under his belt in the Super Bowl. So it's again against Tom Brady. So there's going to be time to be able to beat Andy up about this. I just don't think that right now is that time.
Hey, listen. Andy Reid did a great job with the Eagles. He made them competitive in the playoffs. He might not have won the big one, but he was a hell of a coach for the Eagles, and he's been a hell of a coach for the Chiefs, whether they won or lost the Super Bowl. So to me, that's all irrelevant. If the Eagle fans don't like him because he left, that's one thing. But to say the man is not a good coach because he didn't win a Super Bowl when he was there is just ridiculous, and that's the end of that. I mean, come on.
Oh, agreed. But there's still some animosity that the fact that he wasn't able to bring them to the pinnacle, that he seemed to get better with his time management as he left Philadelphia, and the same problems for 3 NFC championship games before they got to the Super Bowl rang true, where ultimately we feel that had we beaten the Bucs, we would have beaten Oakland. Had we won against Arizona, we would have beaten Pittsburgh. That those are the types of things that we think about and that really the media thinks about. I was always an Andy Reid fan. I was happy to see him win his Super Bowl last year. I thought that he would win the Super Bowl this year, except when I heard that stuff on Thursday, I'm like, ooh, that's going to leave a mark. Because I know what it was like when he lost his son here and what that next season was like and how he just took it. He took that hard, but he's a personally quiet guy. And I knew that was going to start to weigh on him some. I just didn't expect it was going to weigh that much. I thought that the coaching staff around him was going to be a lot stronger than they were, and they weren't. And that's what was surprising to me. That's what really resonated in that game, was that Andy Reid is the coach of that team and that his assistants are not.
And you got to think too that the players knew what was going on too, and they didn't pick it up either. So I mean, there's a lot of you can blame everything. I just look at it no matter what, Pags. The score is the Chiefs lost. Period.
Yep.
I don't care if it's by 3 or 100. They lost the game and definitely got dominated. Whether it was because of Andy Reid not being in the right way, the players fighting each other. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they lost, but mainly because Tampa beat them, and that's the end of that. Pags, before we let you go, I want to tell you did a great job down there in the Super Bowl. Thanks for coming in live for our show. It looked like you guys had a lot of fun out there, and I do have some things for you when I get off the show. I'll be texting you some good stuff, hopefully, for you. And we thank you, as every week you come in and you do a tremendous job with the Philly sports. Thank you.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. And hey, real quick, while I was down in Tampa, I took a quick stop by Spectrum Field, which is where the Phillies are about to do spring training. And there was 10 guys out on the field. I also happened to stop by real quickly by Yankee Stadium and
Nice.
see that they had 8 to 10 people on the field. Some of the people, and I'm going to mention a name here that hasn't been in a couple of years, and it'll probably spark a little bit of controversy. Odubel Herrera was on the field with the Phillies this year at practice, along with Aaron Nola and Bohm and such like that. So there was that was a name that really surprised me. And I know it's been a couple years, and I know that people feel very strongly about something like that. But I thought it was something that it was worth mentioning here because of the story that goes behind him. And I have met the guy. He was a good guy to me, but I don't know that much about his personal life, but I know what the media reported, and hopefully time heals all wounds.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Great mention there, Pags. Behind the scenes, I'm live down in Tampa. Way to go, my friend. Again, thank you for coming in, Pags. Always great having you on, and I'll be in touch with you. You have a great day, Pags, and go back to work, for God's sakes, would you please?
I'm ready because now I'm all rested and ready to go. So,
and one last thing, you didn't get kicked out of any parties, did you, Pags? Please tell me you did.
I did not get kicked out of any parties at all. In fact, I was well received as an Eagles guy throughout. It's one of those things that kind of surprising. And even Tampa fans were coming up to me and they're like, "Thank you so much for sharing this with us."
Very cool.
Going around there, they're saying, "Wow, you were like really official. You're carrying around a laptop and going live and showing all this people."
Yeah.
I was one of the documenters for them, and they were really appreciative of that I got to show them in a really good light.
Excellent, Pags. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Pags.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
So there you go, Jack Pags with his great Philly report as he does every week for us. And he's gonna be live at the draft, Jack. We're gonna be having him probably doing something from the draft for Northeast Streaming Sports. He goes to all the big events, so he's really, really important for Northeast Streaming Sports.
Well, the Eagles go 6th, so it's going to be fun for him to see who they take with the
Oh,
first.
definitely. It's going to be great.
It's going to be more fun for me with the Jets, who go 2nd and 23rd.
Very true, Jack. So,
Unless
folks,
we have Deshaun Watson by then.
So folks, we can take our first official timeout. Stay tuned because we got some Super Bowl coverage you haven't heard anywhere else by any other network coming up at you. It's going to be very interesting. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk, your name will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with my co-host and your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the National Boxing Writers Hall of Fame. Jack, we just had our special guest that we have on here every week. That's Jamie Paggs, our Philly sports guy, and he always brings us great information and is a great guest having on every Wednesday, Jack.
No, he is. Let me just correct you, Mac. It's Boxing Writers Association of America. You said National Boxing Writers Hall of Fame, and I'm honored. I am actually going into the New York State Hall of Fame in
Yes,
April.
you are.
If they can have an official ceremony. Because of the pandemic, I was supposed to go in last year.
Right.
It was put off, but let me tell you what the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, Mac. We'd had the executive director, Ed Brophy, on some weeks ago, and they have their ceremony always the second weekend in June. For the second year in a row, they put it off, and they're going to induct 3 classes at once in June of 2022. So we could see with this pandemic the way it's put things in real turmoil.
Yeah, and I can't wait till you get your spot there, Jack. You deserve it. You're one hell of a writer. I read your articles, and that's how I got you on the original show I was on back when I first started. So, and now, of course, you're my co-host. So, and congratulations, and I can't wait for that to happen, Jack. And hopefully we can get there live, too. I'm going to maybe bother you and have you maybe hook up there for a minute before you get your reward. Jack, what I want to do now is I want to cover now. We were off during the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl to me is one of the greatest events in the world, and I'm gonna bring a little bit of heat with what I think has happened, not only to the NFL but what the national sporting networks have been doing, and they're beholding to the NFL because they sign these big contracts. It's their bread and butter. That's how they make their money. And I'm so tired of the myths that they've been talking about. as far as what to play in the NFL is first. All right. And the first myth that they say is that defense doesn't win championships anymore. Offense does. Well, now we can stop hearing that falsehood. Defense definitely won the game when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers shut down what seemed to be an impossible offense to shut down. And no matter how many former football players or so-called experts in these overrated shows say, we saw proof again that defense actually wins championships, Jack.
Well, listen, I agree. I mean, it comes down to your defensive line. You rush the quarterback, you get to him immediately. He has two options. He either has to throw the ball before he wants to, or he has to avoid the rush and take off. And someone like Lamar Jackson has had success taking off. So has Patrick Mahomes. But once you contain them and you don't allow them to run and you get to them very quickly and force them to react the way before they want to, that's what wins games. I mean, people don't realize that same way on offense. We tend to give all the credit to the quarterback, but if he doesn't have the blocking, they're not going to win.
Second, I'm glad you brought that up, Jack. Second myth, you have to be a mobile quarterback to win in the NFL today. The pocket quarterback is a thing of the past. Well, Jack, the Super Bowl showed us again that was a lie. The most unmobile quarterback of history, I would say, Tom Brady, wins another Super Bowl, his 7th in 10 appearances in the last 20 years. Now, I understand that, yes, Jackson is a great athlete and he wins games. I understand Kyler Murray is a great running quarterback, and he wins games. And even Josh Allen can run the ball very well. But don't tell me that mobile quarterbacks are what we need today when we have example after example of pocket quarterbacks that aren't that mobile that win a lot of games, including the Super Bowl, Jack.
Well, being a mobile quarterback should be plan B. Your first option should always be to stay in the pocket, see what you could do there. But in today's NFL with the pass rush, Mac, I kind of disagree with you. It is a big advantage to be mobile, to be able to avoid the pass rush, get outside the pocket. I mean, you make a great point about Tom Brady, okay? He's not the most mobile of quarterbacks.
Not the most, Jack.
Right. But listen, even Aaron Rodgers went outside the pocket, during the year when he had to.
Sure.
A degree of mobility in the playoff game against the Rams. He faked out the defender and ran in for a touchdown. You want that extra bit of mobility because it does throw the defense off if they think you could do.
Jack, I'm not saying that evasiveness is not good. Of course it's good. I mean, you've got to make plays. That's what you get paid the big dollars for. All I'm saying is don't tell me that you have to be mobile to win, because that's a lie. We saw it in the Super Bowl. You don't have to be mobile. You have to be accurate. And Tom Brady, of course, was accurate. The third myth, Jack, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. Stop comparing Patrick Mahomes to the greatest until he's in the league for at least 8 years, Jack. All right. And don't tell me Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time when you have tight ends that came before him and that are playing with him today that are just as good, if not better. Gonzalez, one of the greatest tight ends of all time, won a Super Bowl also. You got a guy play on the field at the same time that won multiple Super Bowls and looked a hell of a lot better than Kelce. His name's Gronkowski.
Wait. Mac, I think you're wrong there. Tony Gonzalez didn't win a Super Bowl, to my knowledge.
Didn't he win one later in his career, Jack? Or he went to one? He went to one.
I mean, they came up short. He ended his career with the Atlanta Falcons.
They
came up short.
Was that the team that went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, he was. I don't think he was on that. I don't think he was on that team that played Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Okay. I think they lost in the NFC Championship game to the 49ers. He was on that Falcon team, and they didn't quite get there.
Yes.
What people
And-
saying about Mahomes, they're not saying he's the greatest quarterback of all
That's
time.
what they said,
They're
Jack.
saying he's
I
going
listened.
to be the
Jack,
greatest
Jack.
quarterback
I
of all
listened.
time.
I listened to them say,
Back.
Jack.
They call it projection. They have
Jack.
an election.
Jack. I
That's the
listened.
winner.
I
That's
listened
all
to.
it is.
I listened to former players on these networks saying right now Patrick Mahomes was the greatest quarterback of all time.
They're saying
Now, I don't know.
talented quarterback.
No, Jack, I'm telling you exactly what I heard. Right now, after that Super Bowl win, and this year, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, they said. And the reason why they say, there's a reason for this, Jack, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Patrick Mahomes has a long way to go before he's the greatest of all time. Kelsey, I mean, there's so many tight ends that have set so many records. And before he becomes the greatest of all time, he has to do a couple things. And he's not there yet. So let's stop with the dramatic projections. Let's stop with the ignorant comments just because you want to make a headline or because you want to sound smart. You sound totally idiotic to me. So let's stop with that. And please, stop with the stars all the time. And I'm going to get to that too.
How about this? How about a compromise, Mac? Patrick Mahomes is the most magical quarterback of all time.
Today.
No,
Not
I mean,
of all time.
listen.
Not of all time, Jack. No. No.
The way
Today.
he spun around, he
Today.
was like a ballet dancer. He spun around and just
Today.
Jack,
Jack, I've seen a
underhand in the end
Jack,
zone.
I seen quarterbacks jump pass. I seen Fran Tarkenton run 80 yards before he threw a completion. I've seen quarterbacks throw left-handed before he did. Let's listen. Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the league today. I'll give him that. But let's stop saying he's greatest of all time. That's all I'm saying. And I'm tired of these people saying it. The Super Bowl buildup, Jack. All right, Brady versus Mahomes. Are we going to really continue doing this every year? Because it's not the case. Brady did not play Mahomes. Brady played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense. Mahomes played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense. Sorry, Brady played against the Chiefs defense, and we know whose defense was better. Patrick Mahomes, in no way or no shape, played against Tom Brady.
You nailed it. You nailed it perfectly. We had to hear for years, Brady against Manning. Brady was never on the same field with Manning at the same time.
That's right.
Never. Manning played against the Patriot defense. He was playing more against Coach Bill Belichick.
Right.
Brady was playing against the Colt and then later Bronco defense during the same game against Manning. And you want to make a head-to-head comparison. Mahomes wasn't going against Brady in this game. Mahomes was going against the Tampa Bay defense. Brady was going against the Chief defense. I don't know why people want to make that comparison that they were going head-to-head because they weren't.
Again, there is something I want to take further, Jack. I want to take further. Tom Brady did not play the Tampa Bay, did not play the Kansas City Chiefs defense. The whole Tampa Bay offense played against the Buccaneer. The whole Chief defense played against the Buccaneer. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm so riled up. I'm saying it backwards. Tom Brady did not play against the Chief defense. The Tampa Bay offense played against.
Well, you're saying, Matt, let me get this right. You're saying Brady's not the greatest quarterback of all time. You're putting you ahead of him. Is that what you're trying to say?
I will get to that in a minute because I think Brady, there's a good argument that he is. Okay? Now, the fake fans who believe this, I'm not talking.
Mac,
I'm not talking to them right now, Jack. I'm not talking to them. I'm not talking to the idol worshiping, fantasy football playing, non-fans out there. I'm not talking to them right now. I don't want to talk to them right now. I really don't. Because they do not know the game like football is supposed to be. All right? They want to look at the numbers. They're statistic lovers. Let me tell you something. These guys bet against their own teams in fantasy football. All right? And hey, do what you want. But I'm not talking to them right now because they don't know what a pro end flood is. They have no idea what a trap block is. They have no idea any of this stuff. All they know about is Tom Brady's stats. Patrick Mahomes stats. Did this guy catch a ball for 20 yards? Did he score a touchdown? Listen, if you love the game, you love the game, Jack. All right? If you're a football fan, you love the game. You love the strategy. You love the offensive line against the defensive line. You love the running back making the reads to hit the hole. You love the linebacker reading them holes to fill. That's the game. The game is what should be being sold out there right now, and it's not, Jack. We're selling superstars. And the reason why we're selling superstars is because the NFL is a huge business, Jack. It's an organization that has talking heads, and that's called people that are doing the major networks. You can talk about Colin Cowherd, who wants to stand up and say Tom Brady this, Patrick Mahomes this, because that's what the NFL wants. The NFL wants you to idolize their stars, Jack. That's what they want. They don't care about the game anymore. They don't care about the steel curtain anymore. They would rather you talk about Terry Bradshaw. They would rather you talk about Terry Bradshaw than that great defense. And I have no idea, because you know something? That's what fantasy people do.
Yeah. The NFL was doing cartwheels when Tampa Bay and Kansas City won the NFC AFC championship games, because they knew they'd get Brady and Mahomes and they could hype it and the ratings would be off the charts. Had Buffalo and Cleveland won, you had a couple of nice quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen, but they wouldn't have been nearly as good for the ratings. People wouldn't have been getting so hype about Mayfield and Allen. It would have been a nice quarterback, so-called matchup, but nothing like Brady and Mahomes. It's the Tom Brady brand everyone knows. You always want him there, just like you want LeBron James in the NBA Finals.
But you want to know something? You want to know something, Jack? The NBA is totally different than the NFL. The NBA is a players' league. They have, as you've seen, the best players go on a team and they win. It's not the same in football, Jack. It's not the same. And I'm going to tell you,
the NBA doesn't want the Utah Jazz in the finals.
I agree.
Donovan Mitchell doesn't compare to LeBron James.
Agree.
They want the Nets in the finals. The dream matchup for the NBA, the Lakers against the Nets, because you have the stars, the big names, and it's so charismatic.
And let me tell you that the NFL, through their talking heads, shovel this manure down our throats every day. They shovel it down our throats every day, Jack. And anyone that says that Tom Brady won that game has no idea what football is all about.
I would be annoyed if I was a Tampa, on the defensive side of the ball for Tampa Bay. If I'm on the Tampa Bay Buccaneer team and I'm a defensive player, I would get annoyed. I mean, they all like Tom, it seems. But all we hear after the Super Bowl, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady. And Tom Brady played a good game.
Yes.
He managed the game well. He played a good game. He did what he had to do. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the game predominantly because of their defense. Okay?
And let's add one more thing to that, Jack, the offensive line. The offensive line opened holes for them hard-running running backs to control the game when they had to, and they kept Brady clean. I'm going to tell you, there's probably 10 quarterbacks right now that would have won that game on that Tampa Bay team. I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers would have won that game. I guarantee you Russell Wilson would have won that game. I guarantee you Drew Brees would have won that game. Probably Dak Prescott would have won that game. Baker Mayfield might have won that game. Hell, Matt Stafford might have won that game. That offensive line did a tremendous job keeping him clean and opening them holes for them running backs. And that defense punked the Chiefs. They punked them. And that offensive line punked the Chiefs' defensive line. They had them fighting with each other. They had them so riled up, they didn't know what to do. They were frustrated. They started fighting with each other because what happened was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took it to them, and the Chiefs couldn't handle it. Plain and simple.
Leonard Fournette had a wonderful game, ran for 89 yards, was a force. Ronald Jones, even though he was stopped on the goal line once, he had a strong game. But give Brady credit because he was a de facto GM. He helped put the team together. And let's be honest about it. Most of those quarterbacks, okay, all of the quarterbacks you mentioned, maybe with the exception of Aaron Rodgers, had they went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the beginning of the year, chances are they wouldn't have been as forceful as Tom Brady was in putting the team together.
Okay, yeah.
They wouldn't have.
Listen,
So chances are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would not have won the Super Bowl with any other quarterback. They would have
Well,
won the game against the
I-
Chiefs.
I'm talking about, Jack, with that team that Tampa Bay put on that field for that
That
one
Tom
game.
Brady was responsible for.
I'm talking about the game with the players that were there, Jack. I'm not talking about who built the team. I'm talking about that game. That game with that Bucs team. There are at least 10 quarterbacks that would have helped lead the Chiefs, would have helped lead the Bucs to that Super Bowl. And I'm telling you why, because of that offensive line and because of that defense, Jack. And Tom Brady, don't get me wrong. I think Tom Brady's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game. There's no doubt. It's the hands down. You can't even argue that. What I'm saying is that Tom Brady did not win that game. He didn't. He did not win that game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game. I'm tired. I am so tired of hearing this stuff when it comes to football. And I'm going to tell you something else. I don't care what Tom Brady's wife makes. I don't care about his golf game. I don't care that Aaron Rodgers has just got engaged. I don't care that Patrick Mahomes just bought a new mansion. That has nothing to do. Good for them. I'm happy. Good. I'm glad you're having a good life. That has no intrigue to me at all when it comes to football, to any sport really. I don't care about that, Jack. I love to watch the game of football, no matter what team it is, a team that everything works, that everything they do, they dominate. And that's why I love football. I love the strategy. I love the matchups. I love when their game plan comes together. And I love it when the other teams does too, because now we have a good game. And right that Super Bowl Sunday, that last Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. That's all there is to it.
But that was a storyline. Let's be honest about it. There was a big storyline taking place. Patrick Mahomes. This was supposed to be his leap to absolute greatness. Look, they won a Super Bowl. His talent's off the charts. But the legend of Patrick Mahomes was supposed to take off. He was supposed to win a second Super Bowl. Who knows how many more he was supposed to be, winning. And the Brady-Belichick saga was played out. Even though I think it's overrated, they needed one another to win. They did it as a team. They did it as partners. We would hear this nonsense. Who was more responsible for winning? Well, they were both responsible. Players win, coaches coach. And too much was made out of that all along. But the point is, it was a storyline. Even though I didn't particularly like it, could Brady win a Super Bowl without Belichick? It doesn't mean that's the reason New England won. They did it together.
Listen, I agree. And listen, I'm not taking nothing away from Patrick Mahomes either. I'm not. I think Patrick Mahomes is one of the best top 2-3 quarterbacks in the league.
Let me put it another way, Mac. You're saying all the quarterbacks that would have won with New England. You started listing Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson,
the Bucs.
so on. Okay, could any of those quarterbacks, you put them on Kansas City instead of Mahomes, would it have made a difference?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I'm not taking nothing away from him. The Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense dominated that offense. End of story. There's no, it was Patrick Mahomes' fault. It could have been this, it could have been that. Listen, it could be anything. All I'm saying, Jack, is I'm tired of this idol worshiping nonsense. Man. That's not what football is about. That is nothing.
Mac, let me play devil's advocate here. And I'm more than devil's advocate. I mean it. What other quarterback in the history of the NFL, and don't tell me George Blanda, because he didn't. I followed the career of George Blanda. Did what Tom Brady is doing at the age of 43. It's off the charts. It's crazy.
I'm saying.
He's
doing
as good as he ever did.
Let me get to that now, okay, about Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady, if he's not the greatest, he's easily the most successful, easily the most accomplished, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. If he's not the greatest. I mean, you could argue other quarterbacks, but, Tom Brady is there. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You can't dispute that. But there's a certain other thing that they say. that I've listened to on the big networks. And we're not beholden to the NFL. We don't have to say what the NFL wants us to say, Jack. So we can speak freely here. I've heard Tom Brady is the greatest football player ever to play the game. Now let me tell you something about that, folks. Tom Brady does not play two positions like some football players did in the past. Tom Brady does not block. He does not tackle unless he absolutely has to. He does not catch the ball unless it is a trick play. He doesn't run with the ball. And then when he does, he's not that good at it, but he does that out of sheer terror. Tom Brady is not the greatest football player ever to play football. And anybody who thinks that is out of their mind. He is not the greatest football player of all time. The last two-way football player that I can remember was Bednarz, who played for the Eagles when he played center and middle linebacker, if I'm correct.
Well, Chuck Bednarik played
Right.
both ways in the 1960 NFL championship game where the Eagles beat the Packers.
Agree.
That was before the Super Bowl,
Agree.
1960. But it
Agree.
was, yeah.
Agree. So to say that is totally ludicrous. Tom Brady is not the greatest NFL player of all time. At his position, maybe. Probably. He has done something no other quarterback has done before him.
Mac, I think
No quarterback ever will. At his position, he's maybe the greatest of all time. He is not the greatest football player of all time.
Mac,
Period.
I think you're taking it too much to heart. They're prorating it according to positions. Case in point, compare it to boxing where they say Sugar Ray Robinson was the greatest fighter of all time. Sugar Ray Robinson was a welterweight / middleweight. He wouldn't have been able to defeat Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, and so on.
Agreed.
So I think they're prorating it what Brady is in his position compared to how others are in their position.
Jack, what it is they want to make statements that catch your ear and then make you look, and it gets over and over and over. And the NFL wants them to say that. And the NFL wants them to say that because of the betting on fantasy and because of other things. They want to get all people involved in this. They don't.
Is it the NFL? Is it the media?
I understand.
I think it's the media and the fans who are
The
saying
media,
it's
Jack,
part of
the
NFL.
major networks sign contracts with the NFL to broadcast their games, to carry their videos, to speak for the NFL. They don't have anybody out there saying, hey, the NFL sucks. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you they have no other host that says what I'm saying right now because they wouldn't be working there, because they get millions and millions of dollars of revenue talking about how great the NFL is and these superstars.
Well, keep in mind, we're also living in a politically conscious era where broadcasters have to be very careful what they say. You can have a phenomenal career like someone like Al Michaels has had decades in the sport. He could make one little slip up saying a joke or something could just come out of his mouth the wrong way, not meaning for it to come out that way at all. And then he can apologize a second later saying, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that to come out the way it did. Please forgive me. And 40 years of work, 50 years of work will go down the drain. They'll just fire him. The NFL, the TV networks lack character. The people on the top, they just want to play along. The sponsors like to be so politically correct. It's sickening.
I mean, Jack, the NFL and people forget this, or maybe they ignore this, is an organization that's made to make money. The way they make money is by pushing Tom Brady shirts, by pushing Patrick Mahomes jerseys.
What's wrong with that?
I'm not saying. Listen. I'm not saying, Jack. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that right now, the reason why John Madden was so good, Jack, was not only because of his booms and bops and all that other stuff, was because he talked about the game. He talked about what was happening during the game. He informed people that weren't sure about the game that they knew what was going on there. Of course, he said, hey, Phil Simms did a great job, and look at this. But he also talked about Maurice Carthon blocking. He also talked about the offensive line opening holes. He also talked about strategy. This is why John Madden was so good. I don't know if John Madden.
That's not why John Madden was so good. John Madden gave us the impression he was a common guy, the type of guy we would like to sit next to in a bar, have a beer, talk about the game. He gave the impression he was one of us.
I agree with that too. I agree with that too.
John Madden, so
I agree. Listen,
they knew the game as a former Super Bowl winning coach.
I agree with that too. I agree with that too, Jack. All I'm saying is there's not hardly any commentators. I should say network hosts like that anymore, or guests. They don't do that anymore, Jack. Unless it's a special somewhere buried, they don't do that anymore. I heard about Tom Brady, I think, in a 2-week span every day when they weren't even playing. I mean, listen, this is nothing against Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady is an incredible quarterback, one of the greatest of all time. All I'm saying, Jack, is that right now, it's a bunch of puppets out there, and the puppet master is the NFL, having them say things about certain people.
Mac, that's the way it's always been. I'll give you an example. Super Bowl III. Going back to January 12th, 1969. All we hear about is Joe Namath with the guarantee. We don't hear about the great Jet defense that day. That played similar to what Tampa Bay did against the Chiefs. Great defense that day. We don't hear about Matt Snell's great game. 30 carries for 121 yards. 4 catches for 40 yards. It's Joe Namath, the guarantee. So it's always been that way. We go with the glamour positions.
Jack, more so than ever, my friend, more so than ever. And there wasn't this media like it was back then, Jack. It was newspapers mainly and a couple reports here and then. More so than ever are we idol worshiping instead of watching the greatest game.
Let me tell you what bothers me more. All this nonsense about rings. Brady has 3 rings. They're 7 rings. They're talking about, Mahomes, he's got to can he ever catch up to Brady?
What does that matter?
It's so hard to win one Super Bowl. Circumstances have to go in your favor.
Mahomes
is more likely not to win another Super Bowl than he is to win 3 more.
Agree.
More likely.
Agree, Jack. And it shouldn't. That shouldn't even be. Go ahead.
This sick talk about rings. Okay, they don't realize it's a team game.
Right.
It's a team game.
Let me tell you, Jack.
Organizations.
Jack, as we
more than individual players. That's what
Jack,
I want to hear.
I agree. Jack, again, we've talked about this before, and even on a Super Bowl show, there are more average quarterbacks that won Super Bowls than great ones, and believe that. We'll be right back after this, folks. I got to calm down a little bit, and we'll be back, and we got some more show to give you. We got trivia question coming up. We got This Day in History, and we got more great talk. So please stay with us. And we'll
my
be right
answer
back.
to the trivia question, if it's football in advance, I'm giving you my answer before the timeout. My answer is Tom Brady. Football question. And I have to answer when we come back.
That's beautiful, Jack. We'll be right back, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, Visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. live. We're got our own YouTube channel. We're on Jack on the Northeast Streaming Sports. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook Live. We're on Spotify. We're on Pandora, and we got more to go, folks. So we're going to be on a different things. Different channels that you can see and listen to us on. And hopefully, if you can't see us during the day sometimes, tune into there and you'll be able to see us there, Jack. So
they can see us on tape delay. Just go to YouTube.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
Jack Sports Show.
But if you're riding in your car or at work one of these days and you want to take a listen to our show and all the great shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, you can either go to Spotify or Pandora. And like I said, there's a few more things in the works out there, folks. Let me take care of a couple quick points of business. Check out our website, folks, over at nessp.info. We got all the shows over there. You can check them out. We have articles from writers. We have updates from some public relations teams over there, Jack. We have bios on shows. We have links to their shows. And we got people who do advertise with us and sponsor us. We have links to their stores. I've been there. I've bought some things from the Fanatics Sports Shop. I've also bought things from bstbreaks.com. Great companies. They're all about sports, Jack, and I love that. So check that out. Check out Northeast Streaming Sports. As you know, we're one of the shows over there. They got a bunch of shows over there, folks, from TGI Sports Talk to Sports Scope, all the way down to our newest shows. There's about 15 shows over there. If you love sports and you love hearing about it, and they're all different types of shows. We have shows all the way down the East Coast now, Jack, all the way down through Georgia, Florida, and we're overseas in the United Kingdom also, where we're on ads. We're on Power 4D, and we have a wrestling show coming out of the UK, and also an MMA show that comes out of the UK, Jack, and they're going to have something live coming up soon. So got a lot of sports on one place, folks. So go to the Facebook page at Northeast Streaming Sports and check out all these shows. Guys, you won't be disappointed. So,
Mac,
Jack,
you've done it, Mac. You're good at dispersing that information. That's not my thing. I mean, I got it. Kudos. You're a lot better. I'm glad I'm not giving that responsibility on, and you do it each show. I mean, that's great info.
Yes, I do.
I love it.
So I had my little tirade, Jack.
I'm
and-
trying to avoid the trivia question.
Yeah, I know you are, Jack. I know you are.
Something else will come up.
You know, folks, every day we try to get a trivia question on for Jack because Jack is not only a boxing writer, but he's very well versed in the history of all sports. He knows baseball, football, basketball, hockey.
Jack,
Yeah, we won't do that theme, Jack. We'll do this theme for you.
Jack,
The Jeopardy.
here. Let's hear what it is.
Yes. So today, Jack, our trivia question is kind of about basketball, okay? So it's about a pretty famous basketball back in the 90s. He went on to become the Sacramento mayor, Jack. And he was a Sacramento mayor. And I that's what I'm saying. I think you'll know who this guy is.
Oh my.
He served there for 2 years. It wasn't where he played. He went home to his home place. We know about Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger was the governor of California.
Right. We know about that.
This player, oh my, an African American player.
Yeah.
Just thinking of his name. Oh, I'm having a brain cramp. As soon as you mentioned it, the name wasn't clicking. The face was clicking in my head. Oh my. I just can't think of the name. I can't think of the name.
When I say he's very popular, I mean, he wasn't the greatest.
He
but
wasn't
he
a great player. No, he wasn't a star in the league. He wasn't of the caliber of a Chris Webber.
Right.
Caliber,
right.
no.
But he was very popular.
Who was his teammate during that time, I believe. But
I'm not sure about that.
Man. I just can't think of the name.
Kevin Johnson, Jack. Kevin
Johnson. Yeah, heck of a player. Who played for the Phoenix Suns as well.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he did. He was a very solid basketball player, Jack. Like you said, maybe not a LeBron James and guess what, Jack?
Very good. No, a heck of a player. Look.
Yes. Carlos.
Player.
Wait a minute. So he had KJ. He was right.
With the Suns, he was the equivalent with the Suns. You could say was the type of player, the caliber of close to Chris Paul. I think that would be a good, maybe.
Not right there, but he's almost as good as Chris Paul.
Something like that. That matter of opinion. Yeah.
So Jack, tomorrow on the show, if they're scheduled coming on, will be the famous Iceman John Scully. Former 9-time Golden Glove champion, Jack. Who wins the Golden Gloves 9 times? I mean, the man was an unbelievable amateur boxer. He went on to the pros. He was a middleweight ranked contender, a light heavyweight ranked contender. He writes articles for boxing magazines. He was an ESPN analysis guy. He's been
on the show a while, Mac. We know.
Yeah, but this is now. Remember, Jack.
Well, what's the big buildup all of a sudden?
Because we have a lot of new viewers on different places now. Yes, so he's due to come on. He had a big thing where he was meeting with the Olympic team that he was part of, trying to go over and be the Olympic team. They had some kind of Zoom meeting or something. And we'll also have Carter B on.
With old time, with amateurs from the past, getting together for reunions and all. He does great work behind the scenes.
And he also sets up charities for boxers that are down in the dumps. Where he ends up raising funds for him. Real good guy. And we'll talk about his Aunt Flanagan, hopefully. I love that.
By the way, good trivia question. It was fair. Good.
Yes.
Very good question.
Thank you, Jack. I love your approval. And we have Carter B coming on, folks, tomorrow. Our National Hockey League analyst. And, man, this guy is good, Jack. I mean, he knows everything about hockey. He gives you honest answers. And even though he's not a fan, he's a fan of one particular team. He's very unbiased and gives a great opinion. So if you guys
what do you think Carter's thinking about us while he's talking?
What do you mean?
Like we're asking the hockey questions. Is he thinking these guys don't know what the
Yes.
heck they're talking about? Is he thinking, these are good questions. These are knowledgeable guys. I don't know what's going through Carter's head.
Yeah.
If it's the first one and he thinks we have no clue what we're talking about, he's too nice to say so.
Right. He
I
cringes.
wonder.
He cringes.
But sometimes you have to convince a guy. Like I convinced Byron Williams I know my football.
Right.
He came on board. It took him a while.
Yeah. But I mean, I think Carter cringes every time I try to pronounce one of those hockey players' names that's not, Jones or Smith. So every time I go to pronounce a name, he kind of winces a little bit. So, Jack, let's do getting near the end of the show. Let's do our little This Day in History. And I ain't got a lot. I got a few subjects here, and maybe you know a little bit more about this first guy I'm bringing up than I definitely do. 1908, Canadian champ, the heavyweight champ.
Burns, right?
Tommy Burns knocks out Jack Palmer for his 8th title defense. He knocked him out in the 4th round. So this Tommy Burns, and people don't realize boxing is very popular in Canada and the UK. I mean, it's one of the biggest sports over there.
Tommy Burns was a little guy, 5'7.5", world heavyweight champion, made a good share title defenses, is best known for losing the world heavyweight championship to Jack Johnson in Australia in 1908. Johnson had been hounding Burns, following him all over the world. Johnson was so much bigger.
Yeah, I remember.
Like a heavyweight against a middleweight in reality. And at the end of the fight, in the 14th round, when Johnson stopped him, the police came into the ring and they stopped the cameras. So we never saw the actual ending.
Yeah.
They stopped the cameras. The fight got stopped. And of course, Jack Johnson held after beating Burns. There was no rematch. There was no need to. Johnson was just big and better. But Burns was a very underrated fighter. For a man his size, 5'7.5", to win the world heavyweight title was quite an accomplishment.
And Jack Johnson kind of messed it up the way he acted, the way he publicly acted back then for a lot of black fighters. As we know, the prejudice back then was very, very heavy. The white people really didn't like that there was a black champion, and he kind of messed it up for a lot of black boxers because he was so outgoing and fooling around and acting a fool sometimes. But it took a long time before Joe Louis got.
Now, in this day and age, Johnson's conduct would have been totally acceptable.
Right.
But when he won the title in 1908, marrying white women, taunting white opponents in the ring, and Johnson had he had gold teeth. And he would flash that smile while he was taunting an opponent. And even Muhammad Ali later was fascinated by Jack Johnson. Muhammad Ali said once, they say I'm bad, but Jack Johnson, he was crazy.
Yeah.
They'd come with shotguns to the fights. They'd have to check shotguns at the door. And Jack Johnson would be laughing in the face of everyone over there. I mean, he was bold. Some people feel he should have toned it down a bit. It would have helped the people of his own ethnic group at that time. And you're right, Mac. When Jack Johnson eventually lost the title in 1915 under controversial circumstances, even though I felt there was no controversy, when he got knocked out by Jess Willard, and Johnson later claimed he took a dive, it took 22 more years for a black man to get a chance to fight for the heavyweight title. And that's when Joe Louis won it, because the heavyweight champion then was the epitome of manhood. They wanted the champion to be humble, something Jack Johnson certainly wasn't. He was an athlete way ahead of his time with
I agree.
behavior.
I agree. And I figured it was good that you went into that, especially being Black History Month, right? That, there were other pioneers in other sports, Jack Johnson being one of them, who showed that they are equal and better.
But when Jack Johnson won the heavyweight title, he fought a lot of black fighters on the way up, and he fought them multiple times. He didn't even consider giving them a shot at the world heavyweight title. And some of them, like Sam McVeigh, You know, they would complain about Johnson. He forgot where he came from,
Right.
you know, and so on. And Jack Johnson, I mean, flamboyant character, you know, great fighter. You know, he's most known for July 4th, 1910, when Jim Jeffries, an invincible white champion who had retired 6 years earlier, was brought out of retirement to face Johnson. Johnson dominated him in Reno, Nevada, knocked him out in the 15th round. The result itself was highly overrated. Jeffries was 35 years old, coming off a 6-year layoff, and he was just a shell of the fighter he was. Yet people magnify that victory by Johnson as him being a superior fighter to Jeffries, which he may have been had they both met in their prime. One thing I want to say, Black History Month, about a forgotten fighter, the past. Harry Wills, a heavyweight in 1920s, never got a shot at heavyweight champion Jack Dempsey because there was fear that if Wills won the fight, he could be another Jack Johnson in his conduct. But Wills was quiet, modest, soft-spoken. He was penalized as much as anyone over what went on with Jack Johnson.
And it took a long time before another black fighter got a shot at the heavyweight.
That was Joe Louis, 22 years after Johnson lost the title.
True.
Louis got a chance,
In 1969, LSU's Pete Maravich scored 66 points versus Tulane. Pistol Pete, Jack. I mean, he had a short career, but the man was a wizard. I mean, he was the point guard of today, if you want to look at his old films, Jack. I mean, this guy handled the ball like nobody else. He looked like he played for the Harlem Globetrotters, for God's sakes, when he was playing on the court.
You know, you read my mind. The Harlem Globetrotters could have came to Pistol Pete for some of his tricks.
Yeah.
Pistol Pete, the things, he was a magician on the court. You know, I mean, you talk about no-look passes. He would, you know, or behind-the-back passes. His passes would go underneath his leg, you know. Right. And the stuff he could do with the basketball was just absolutely amazing.
I mean, one of the guys that I think, as Carlos said, that could play in this era no problem at all. And
he was not athletic, absolutely.
Yeah. And if he didn't get injured, I don't know how great his pro career could have really been. Because when he was in his prime, Jack, I don't know if there was any point guard at that time or maybe at this time if he had a shot to continue playing basketball. In 1989, Casey Jones and Lenny Wilkens got elected to the Hall of Fame. Both great coaches, Jack.
Lenny Wilkens was a great player.
Yeah.
A great player and an outstanding coach. Casey Jones was an average player. They didn't even think he'd be good enough to make the Boston Celtic teams, but he did, and he was an excellent defensive player, and he was on a number of those championship teams. And then when he was made a coach of the Celtics by Red Auerbach, Larry Bird loved Casey Jones. He loved him because Casey left them alone. He didn't make the game complicated. He allowed them to play the game. So whenever Casey's name would be mentioned to Larry Bird, he'd break out in a smile. You know, he really liked Casey a heck of a lot, and that's the sign of a good coach.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and Larry Bird wasn't the easiest guy to get along with either, Jack.
No, but he loved Casey Jones.
No doubt.
Let him play the game.
So, Jack, let's talk a little bit about, I mean, we got a lot of big things coming up here in the future, folks. We're probably going to be live at the draft. If there is a basketball induction Hall of Fame out here in Springfield, we'll be live from there.
We're going to be live at the draft in the evening while it's going on, Mac. I don't know.
Yeah, well, listen. We're at least going to be live as it gets there, and then who will be there will be streaming on Northeast Streaming Sports while he's there. So we'll be carried all day, Jack. Again, the Basketball Hall of Fame induction, we're going to try and be there live, folks, so you can maybe meet some of these great professional basketball players. You got Duncan going in. You got a few of these legends going in, and hopefully we get a shot to interview them because they do have a meet and greet thing. So we're going to try and be there for you. We got March Madness coming up. To me, not the same as it used to be, Jack.
No, it's a shell of itself this year. I'll be honest. Normally, I'll get psyched for March Madness. I'm not.
Yeah,
as
it is a huge national event. that
Yeah.
people, they play all those brackets and everything. So, I mean, it's still a big thing. It's still followed by everybody. So we're going to try and do a special, at least for the Final Four, maybe the championship. We'll see what we can do for you there, folks. Anything big coming up, we're either going to try and be there live, folks, or we'll have some kind of special show to go with that so that we're going to try and give you the best sports coverage we can over here at Mac and Jack and over at the Northeast Streaming Sports. So,
And when
Jack,
we're not giving the listeners coverage, we're complaining about it.
Exactly. So, guys, thank you for coming in today. Good show, as always. Jack, you did a great job, as always. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m., same time. If you can't watch us, we're on Spotify and we're on Pandora, folks. So we're out there for you. Come and see us. Have a great day, folks.